All right, so welcome to the show, Conversations with Kira. I'm Kira. I'm running for House District 44 in the Parker Lone Tree area for the Colorado State House of Representatives. The election is November 3rd. It's coming up soon. And in preparation for that, I think it's important for us to connect with our community. And one way to do that is these conversations. And we have a wonderful guest today, two guests actually, Charles Bucknam, who's a local resident of Parker. There he is. And Christina Sanhoff is also a resident of Parker. Charles has put together a wonderful and important presentation on radon in Colorado and specifically in the Parker Lone Tree area in terms of the exposure that we are having in our residents, our homes, our schools, and our private wells and well water. So Charles, can you just say a few words about yourself?
Yeah, I'm an analytical chemist. I worked for Newmont Mining for 38 years and retired here in Grandview Estates. We're the oldest subdivision in the county. And we set up a water conservancy district to protect our water sources. And that's the group that funded the work we're going to talk about today.
Thank you so much. And Christina, introduce yourself, please.
Hello, Facebook patrons. I'm Christina. I am the public relations manager for the Cura for Colorado campaign. And I couldn't be more excited for the prospects of this campaign. And I hope that if you guys need anything, you can reach out to me through Cura or on my Facebook.
Super, thank you. All right, so we're going to get started with and sharing the slideshow here. And here we are in the beginning here. So Charles, why don't you walk us through some of this? We have our title page.
Yeah, we're going to talk about radon and radioactive elements in groundwater. The reason we got involved in this is my wife had succumbed to lung cancer, and we figure that part of that is due to the radon exposure we had in our home here. As you can see here, half the homes and private wells in Colorado have higher levels of radon than is healthy and should be checked every 3 years, according to the EPA, local EPA. So radon is an inert radioactive gas. It doesn't react directly, but it does. It falls apart and then it emits radioactivity that way. It comes up from the bedrock. It can go into groundwater. It can go into the basement. It's traveling upward because it's lighter than air. And the waterborne can be emitted by your shower or when you're washing the dishes. You know, we put that spray on. If you've got radon in your water, it will release that. I guess that covers that one pretty well.
Yeah, so it's also odorless, right? Gas?
That's odorless. You can't smell it. You can't see it.
Right. So
we're having a test run on the house right now because you should check it every 3 years.
Every 3 years, you're testing your radon levels.
Yeah. So we have not only a gas treatment system, we've also got one that treats our incoming water because we're on a private well. And that's what we discovered in this program was there's an awful lot of radon dissolved in the water in this particular area.
Right. Yes. And as you were mentioning before, more than 50% of homes in the state of Colorado have higher than what should be allowed levels of radon exposure that goes through their home.
It's 7th highest in the U.S. Colorado is 7th highest.
And yet right now we have no regulations in terms of requirements for testing for radon. Is that right?
Yeah, but there is a statute that supports it that they passed in the legislature. And So we're hoping as a result of this work, we can extend that to waterborne radon because it doesn't really go into it at all.
Yeah.
And we found quite high levels.
As far as I know, though, when a person buys a home, they're not required within the inspection to have a radon inspection in addition to the home one. Is that correct?
Yes, and they're also required to transfer the well permit. And so at that point, we could actually implement a control to have them have it tested and provide a certificate of closing. So that's kind of the general approach we're using right now and trying to get this in the legislature. But first we have to get Kara elected.
Yeah,
Right.
that's right. And I'll definitely work on this because I think it's very important. We actually moved into our house a year ago, and our real estate agent recommended a radon testing. And luckily I had found out about it prior that it could be an issue. So we did have tests done and found out that we had irregular ratings, some extremely high and some low. So the results showed that we definitely needed mitigation. We were able to get the seller to pay for the mitigation upon approval of getting the house. So we got a mitigator, and I feel much better about that for sure, knowing that they were bypassing those radon gases and potentially, being exposed to cancerous gas. But I really, after that experience, I thought, my goodness, everybody should have this knowingness and should be testing their homes. And like you're saying, every 3 years, because it can change, right?
Yeah, we've been in this house like 20 years. And the funny thing is we started a radon test when we first moved in, and we just forgot about it. You put it, it's a passive test, you set it up, and you got to remember in 2 days to pull it out at the right time. So we forgot about it, so we just kind of blew it off.
Yeah.
And now I'm just insisting when they try to get me to run the test, I'll have the certified technician run the test. I highly recommend that. They have to be certified to do this.
Yes, and there are quite a few really reputable companies in Colorado that'll do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to go to the next slide. So I know you're going to get into a discussion about this, but here it is, right? Radon in the well water.
Drinking water is what you're worried about. That gets in the water, it's dissolved. It can be removed by aeration, as we've shown, and that's what we've done. The recommended EPA level for water should not exceed 300 picocuries per liter. And what a picocurie, a curie is 1 gram of radium produces 1 curie. So a picocurie is 10 to the minus 12th of, or 10 to the minus 9th, I think, for a picocurie of concentration. So it's very low numbers, and there's tricky analysis. So here we are in Grandview Estates. We're near Chambers Road, Lincoln Avenue, and First Street. Now we found that just off Lincoln Avenue, now that Meridian is putting in some new wells in these upper aquifers that we found the contamination in. So I've just sent in a referral to the county so that when they'll have this information on our wells to know that there's something nearby and it's something they need to look for. So we need to go to the Planning Commission, to the location and extent hearing, and ask for a baseline analysis to be performed on it to protect those citizens that live in Meridian.
So that is very important. Meridian is a large new development that, as you're saying, is looking for additional sources of water and wanting to drill into the aquifer, the Dawson aquifer, I think you were saying?
There's three aquifers. We had the Dawson, the Denver, and then the upper Dawson. We have the upper and lower Dawson. And then Also, there's alluvial aquifer, which is just mostly surface water. And we also found, we didn't find the radon in that because it's close to the surface, but we did find uranium in it. So
Okay.
we should look for uranium, you look for radon and radium is what we found. And
Okay.
you can use a gross alpha that just looks for radioactivity. That's a good screening method. If you just
Okay.
want to see if you have anything.
Yes. So that that request is going out, I believe you said, for them to check the well water or the underground aquifer, see if they have.
That's our comment. Yeah. And I gave them all the data, this presentation, except for what Kira put in it.
Yeah.
And I got analytical data. The yellow mark stuff is stuff that's over the limit for the parameter.
Okay. So it could be a serious issue. And I believe there is a mitigation, right? For if they do find higher levels of radon than is allowable in their water that basically goes into people's homes or drinking water, the showers and such. So what is the mitigation for that? How can you fix it?
So aeration is the thing to do on radon. And so that's why most surface water you don't have to worry about it. Most of the water sources around here are not a problem. Reviewing the Meridian application, they are dependent on having just a covered area, not specifically engineered for radon, that may protect them from some of that radon if it's in there.
Okay. So
this is the kind of the scope for the statewide is 113,000 exempt wells.
Okay. What does that mean?
Those are individual wells. The exempt means they're exempt from regulation by the state engineer as far as volume. Now, as far as the concentrations of impurities, that's a responsibility on these small wells if they're exempt of individuals, because the US EPA doesn't kick in until 25 people are on the well. So we're kind of on our own. We'd like to have a check on it, you know. So
there is no law or regulation that says when you own a private well, you've got to get it tested.
And nobody tells you that.
Nobody tells you that.
Yeah, they test for the air, for radon in the air, but not in the wells.
Wow. I mean, that's a big deal in my opinion.
They actually quit running it in the state office. You used to be able to buy an analysis for radon, but you can't buy it from them. You've got to go to a commercial lab now.
You know, a lot of people who live in Parker area, especially in the rural areas, do rely on their wells.
Everybody does it. They're in these larger acreage, except the ones that have distributed water.
Okay.
But all the rural areas, I think it's typical to have a drinking water well.
Right.
And so everybody should test this.
Yeah.
If they have that.
There's your son. Hi.
And I promised my wife I'd work on this and try to get people to know that they're at risk.
Yeah, my deep condolences to you and your wife's passing from this. So yeah, we'll work as hard as we can, because obviously, I mean, if this can be avoided, we should be working on this and ensuring that people, one, get the education, and two, get some testing done, and three, mitigation, and four, obviously, financial help if they need it in order to get the mitigation. Okay. So these are the areas that have been monitored, the wells in your area, is that right?
Yeah, so the crosshatch is really the way our subdivision's laid out. And the reason we got onto this was the Chambers Reservoir which is
Okay.
up on the right-hand side of the screen here.
But it's kind of drained right now, isn't it?
They're putting it in a liner. I mean, we started with a hearing like they're having at Meridian 10 years ago for this, and we got a monitoring program, but we didn't get everything we needed in the baseline survey. This was designed by Tri-County Health, and they didn't do the radioactive elements. So we've ran for 20 years, or for 10 years since they started working on Reservoir, with these wells right along the reservoir being contaminated.
And so how many of these wells that were tested have high levels of radon?
We had most of them had high levels of radon, uranium, or radium, or combinations thereof.
And were the residents alerted to this who have the wells?
Yeah, we have a water conservancy district, like I said. And so we only had $10,000 a year. Everybody pays about $50 in their taxes.
Uh-huh.
And it takes a long time to get through all the wells at 5 a year. We're also doing a water level measure. That's
So
what we started with.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Did everyone who had found that out about their well get it mitigated?
I don't know. There's no control over that. It's private property.
Right.
So I did talk to the one that had the highest levels, and they are having it mitigated. But just now they're having it mitigated.
Okay.
So this is a picture of the that one, that graph.
Yeah, I'm trying to
Can
get
you go back to the graph.
There it is.
This is the level information we got from Chambers Reservoir. It was up to 2 acre-feet per day was leaking. And so we told them from the very beginning, no, just the water. So this was a horrendous waste of water and the possibility of contaminating our wells, which are right adjacent to the reservoir along 6th Street. That's
This
what
is the Chambers Reservoir.
Yeah, so they're putting a liner in now so it won't have this problem anymore.
Ah, okay, that's why they're putting that in there. It's a big plastic
No,
piece.
their surface water had some uranium in it, but they didn't have any radon in the wells that they were testing.
So the Chambers Reservoir is not really, does not have high levels?
No, it didn't. We only did one test on it. Most of these we just did one test per well. And
Okay.
those two wells were okay. But the surface wells had uranium in them. So the uranium makes radon.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Produces radon.
So
we started work with the Planning Commission on a location and extent, like I say, which is the same process as Meridian's going through now. And they did the baseline study in December 2010. We didn't get what we wanted on the baseline, although we weren't even aware that we should ask for radioactivity at that time. And so we went through the baseline analysis, asked for a synthetic liner. We wanted to use the EPA drinking water standards and the
So you were in favor of the synthetic liner that they're putting in. Is that what you're saying?
right. No, we wanted nothing, but we would settle for the synthetic liner.
Okay, I'm just curious. The synthetic liner looks like plastic to me. I mean, doesn't the plastic leach into the water?
Well, they can cover it. I don't know if they're going to, you can have they put in a sub layer to make sure you don't have holes in it. They put in a system that's under drain. So if water does leak through there, they can collect it.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I have here is the stars are things that they included in the analysis, and the little plus signs are things that they did not.
They do not regulate.
They did not include in the baseline study.
It's 12:30.
And
So anyway, That's a kind of a busy slide, but it gives you that magnitude of how much analytical work you should be doing. Maybe
Yeah.
do enough.
Yes, yes, for sure. So there's pluses and minuses to this synthetic liner, it sounds like.
Well, that's just to identify stuff that was actually measured. The asterisks, the stuff they actually measured, and the others are ones that they've omitted.
Okay. I mean, I do have a concern with that plastic component because, you know, when you have a plastic water bottle and you let it sit in the sun, it doesn't taste very good after a while, right? I mean, there's some leaching of.
Well, the water is supposed to only go for irrigation. It's not supposed to go to drinking water.
Okay, but the irrigation water seeps down into the ground, but I guess that would filter it out.
Yeah. Well, then it'd be going in sprinklers in your yard. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, that's helpful.
That's the idea. They're supposed to use it for irrigation. Put on the next one. So this is the actual.
Oh, sorry. You wanted to go to the next one. I thought you meant that. Okay.
That's good. Yeah, the S are the shallow ones that have the arsenic in it. And then the
Arsenic?
GEs, not arsenic, uranium, excuse me.
Okay.
I get uranium and arsenic screwed up sometimes.
Okay.
These GE wells are the ones that were initially part of the program.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And surface water, they didn't, in this last sampling, they didn't analyze what was actually in the reservoir.
I see.
But we did have some data on that.
Well, I'm glad you're focused on the details of this. Being a chemical engineer, this is very detailed for sure. But I'm glad that you're a proponent and you're working on this for everybody.
Yeah. So these are the things that we're exceeding. You had the total dissolved solids over the 400. We had those in the drinking water wells. We had iron in a few. That's not toxic. It's mostly discolors the water and looks rusty.
Yeah, I know when we lived in Stonegate, we had a lot of issues with red, rusty looking water.
Yeah.
And then they replaced the pipes.
Good. Manganese they had a problem with.
Huh?
Go back there.
Back?
Slide.
Sure.
Back one side. Manganese at 05.
Uh-huh.
That was a problem with particularly the GE2 well.
Mm-hmm.
Now we suspect that the GE2 well, if you look at the well permit, it said that it had perforated screen up to 10 feet from the surface. So we think that that's possibly why it was leaking so bad, because it was coming up that well and into the surface water.
Uh-huh. So these are all these samples you're talking about are still again on the Chambers Reservoir, right? Off Chambers Road?
These GEs are ours.
Yeah.
This Denver Aquifer, that's this is mine is a control. And this is the only thing it had was a little high.
And then so the Denver Aquifer, so that's near downtown then, I'm assuming.
It's underneath the Dawson.
Where? Underneath Dawson. So there's several aquifers.
Oh yeah, there's four main aquifers are the Dawson, the Denver, the Arapahoe, and the Laramie Fox Hills.
Are they layered on top of each other or are they just spread out?
They're kind of arbitrarily delineated.
Yeah. I mean, they're like big caves, right? With water running through.
Or sandstone.
Sandstone.
But these are 300 was the limit for radon. We had up to 6,100 in that GE2 well.
Of radon. So RN stands for radon.
Yeah.
So that's pretty high, isn't it? 6,100?
Here's the radium. 5 is the limit. It was 18 up to 67. That's quite high.
Oh, okay.
And that's the one that's being remediated, GE1.
Yeah, that's bad.
And then the uranium, that should be 0.03, excuse me. Uranium, that's an error.
Okay.
So
So is the Colorado State of Environment and Health on this?
Well, we had them testify at the hearing because I presented this to the oil and gas people, because there's the section besides ours where actually the Chambers Reservoir is located is delineated for a fracking well. They never installed it. So I brought this to them. I said, you should be running baseline analysis on this. Why aren't these on the list? They didn't have a good explanation for that.
Wow, Charles, you're amazing. Yeah, you're the watchdog, right? Staying on top of this for everybody.
What was really unusual is, mostly we go to the hearings at the oil and gas and we give our little spiel and they go on to the next person. They go all the way through, but in this particular case, this was the new voluntary directors that were just appointed by Paulus. And so they were asking questions and they actually went back and had these guys look at it and come back and talk to us.
Excellent.
And they verified what I was saying.
Okay.
What's on the next one here?
Okay.
So this is the legislative bill I found. And the red part is what I would add to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
We not only certify radon gas.
So this was passed in, I think, 2016, was it? Or 2017?
Yeah, 2016.
16, okay. I know
And so
Casey
we can
Becker
add
was
on
one of
to this one.
sponsors.
It should be easier to add on to because it definitely affects a lot of people.
So basically make an amendment to the bill?
Right.
Okay, that's
So
a good idea.
I've got it all written up. So.
Oh, in terms of what we should do?
Yeah, I've got ideas. My ideas are in there. So we've got one of these. We just got to get somebody to take it.
Yep.
Okay.
So I presented this to our representatives, which are your opponent and Holbert.
Well, I know Casey Becker, the state speaker, Speaker of the House, she sponsored that bill, actually.
She sponsored this one. Yeah, our local representatives wouldn't touch it. They said they only get 5 bills and they've already decided what they're going to run.
I mean, this is important because it affects the health of many people.
Yeah. He said go to the majority because they can get extra bills more than 5 in there. So
yes, I've heard that there's ways of actually doing that.
Yeah, it's difficult if you're the minority though.
Ah, okay. All right, here we go.
So this is a little bit on the analytical requirements. Requires special handlings because if you shake up the sample, you can degas it, right? And they no longer assay it in the state lab. It's one of the most serious environmental health problems, indoor radon gas. And
radon gas is so nasty and you can't even smell it. So you have no idea that it's happening.
So at $50 per sample, you can get a gross alpha measurement to see if you've got radioactivity. But to do this,
really,
this entire standard methods that we've run, comprehensive, it's $1,000 per sample.
Okay.
So that's your taxpayer money that's going to that. But we can only do 5 a year.
And what is that again? I'm sorry, I don't quite understand.
For the analysis.
For radon.
Yeah, so we've identified an area where we have radon. We need to expand that. Right?
Okay, and make it reasonably cost for people, right?
Right. I mean,
but there's private companies that provide the testing.
Well, if you did it at closure and it was a law, they'd have to do it. That's what I figured. And that shouldn't cost the government much money. You know?
Oh, to be assistants, you mean? To be copay or something?
All we'd ask them to do is take the data and put it in a database so people can look up when they want to buy a property. They can look it up. It had radioactivity in it or not.
Somebody's calling you, Charles.
I'm not answering. Sorry.
Okay. I'll do the next slide here.
Yeah.
So these are your recommendations, it looks like.
Yeah.
Okay.
Database be established for radon, radium, and uranium.
Okay. So a database, okay, for small
Okay.
exempt wells, and there,
Yeah.
and you've stated there are quite a few of them.
Then as the database can be populated as drill permits are approved, right?
Right.
They got blanks in there, and then you just ask them to produce a certificate from a certified lab that showed the values of this to.
So when you're saying to do a database, you're also saying, are you saying that it should be a requirement then for?
Yeah.
Okay.
And keep permanent records. Yeah.
Okay. So that would be a requirement for people to test their wells.
Yeah, and then the state would be responsible for managing the database, make sure that
Okay.
everything was right.
Okay. So that would probably fall under the Colorado State House of Environment,
Right.
probably, and health.
Well, or the state engineer for water could be, or it could be they work together on it probably.
Okay. And then a database for populated as drilling permits are approved. What exactly does that mean?
That means every time somebody sold their property with their well, they'd have to have the certificate at closing. And so
Okay.
then we slowly start collecting data.
Oh, that's great. So when they're selling their house, they have to show that they have a safe well.
Right.
Uh-huh.
And as in order to,
or pay for the mitigation, right?
And what'd you say, Christina?
so in order to earn the permit, you would have to test and provide the information
Right.
to populate the database.
Yeah.
And would you suggest further testing past that, or just for the consumer to be on their, take it on to the responsibility of themselves to check the database and see if there's been any tests since that original drill was?
Yeah, I think this would be just a start.
Okay. Just a baseline.
If we tested and Grandview is the only one in the whole state that has this problem, that'd be adequate. But if it turns out that half the private wells have these,
I can guarantee. I can't say any guarantees, but I'm pretty sure that other wells have high levels of radon if Grandview has it.
Right.
That
was a hypothetical.
Yeah, exactly. I don't say for sure until we've got the data.
That's right.
Yeah. I like data. All right. And then this is ensure mitigation in areas that have contamination. Would that be a recommendation?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So they have to come up with a program.
Yeah, that's the tricky part. Okay. And this is
the hearing that I put a clip together on the hearing.
Okay.
That if people are interested in hearing directly from the head of the environment in the state of Colorado about this problem in our location. But he pretty much concurred with it.
Oops. Yeah, I think we're going to skip that because of our time frame.
Yeah. It's there if you want to look at it.
We'll send it out in the newsletter. We'll send a link.
Great idea.
So this is a typical analysis or a mitigation system where you pump the radon gas into it's like an exhaust pipe, right?
Yeah, for us, I know we have this fan that is constantly running underneath our house. So when they came to mitigate, they had to, break a hole basically in our ground and then put the fan in there and connect this big pipe to it. So as the fan is turning, it's pulling the air up through the tube and out through the top of the house.
Yeah, based on the results of the study, I went ahead and put in the water treatment system And in that one, it just goes through a barrel. So every time you pump water, it blows air through it.
Uh-huh.
So it keeps it, whatever's in that barrel is radon free. And then it
So
just
you
goes out.
designed
It was designed by a company back east.
that. Okay. So that's how you, so what you're describing is how you mitigate the private wells.
Yeah, it was the same thing, except you run it through water.
Run
And
it
then
through
the
water.
water's treated. The water's treated.
Okay. Huh. So that's what it looks like, right? So, sort of. I think every house is a little different.
Yeah, when they put, the last guy that put it in there, the water treatment system, he didn't put it all the way up through the roof, although I wanted him to do that.
Really?
Yeah, he just put a little crook on it. So it's pushing it back down.
That's odd.
Yeah. I
It
wasn't
seems
too
like
thrilled about that. He said he couldn't do the whole job. So
Oh,
I figured
oh,
you pay twice, you might as well pay 3 times.
my goodness. All right. Well,
But testing's the most important thing. Test every 3 years.
okay. Every 3 years. For people
Yes.
just tuning in, radon is an odorless, natural occurring gas that
Right.
can seep through the ground up into your home through cracks in the cement in your basement,
Or it can come in your water.
or come in your water,
Yeah.
and it needs to be tested.
That's right.
Every house should have a test for radon.
Right.
Yes. And then every 3 years, you're saying they should be tested.
Right. Make sure it hasn't changed.
And if the levels are too high, then this is what needs to be put on there for the home, but then there's a different kind of mitigation for the water.
Yeah, the only difference is it has the same system except it goes through a barrel of water.
Okay.
So you have to have room for that in your basement too.
Yeah, it's extremely important because it basic, as we were talking about earlier, if people just tuned in, radon causes lung cancer, which your wife sadly died from because of radon exposure in your home.
That's true. Well, we can't definitively say that, but
Yeah.
certainly it seems like that's likely.
Because
heavy.
nobody smokes in the house, right?
No, not anymore.
Not anymore?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We don't want any more lung cancer.
Right.
One's enough. One in the family's enough.
Right. Okay. Well, so we can't officially say that's how she passed, but you're pretty
She's
sure.
down there for 20 years in that
Okay.
basement. She had her office down there.
Okay. And then when you tested the house, you found, was it super high levels or what levels?
No, it was about, I think, 5 picocurious or 6, a little bit over.
Yeah.
It wasn't real high.
Well, it turns out
We had it in the
that
water
when
too.
I'm sorry, when it rains or when there's extra moisture in the air, it increases the levels.
And if you're spraying it upstairs, if it's in the water, it's going to be not just in the basement, it'll be wherever you're spraying it.
Spraying
So
what?
you're spraying it.
Oh, spreading.
Everywhere you spray water,
Yeah.
like to wash your car or whatever.
Oh, yeah. If it's in your
Outside it'd be okay, but if it's in the house, you'll be having a problem.
Interesting. So if you're using the water, especially if it's well water and it has high levels of radon and you're unaware of it, you're exposing your internal home to that as well because it comes off of the water. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the invisible enemy.
Yeah. Okay. So I added this piece because I did a little research on schools and exposure to radon. Apparently this is a big issue as well for schools. And the statute right now as it stands in Colorado is that they are required, all the schools, to test for radon and maintain records of the test results. The statute doesn't require schools to mitigate. So it's up to the school district. If the school district decides it's not in the budget for whatever reason, they can choose not to mitigate. So that is important to be aware of. Maybe we should ask our school district, do you have the samples of the, or the records of the test results? And just to get a feel and make sure. I mean, I believe that's anybody in the public can ask for that information. Is that right, Charles?
Absolutely. And the other thing is, if you have the stuff, you know, you can be affected by it. That's the main thing. And schools are going to have more concentration of many students, so you have more people exposed.
Yeah.
You know?
I think
well, hopefully the social
to get that information.
Yeah, the social spacing that they're doing now should help if there is radon in the school.
Yeah.
They have
I mean,
less
obviously exposure. It would probably be better if they added to the statute that it's required to mitigate. Yeah,
considering how much money they're spending on the virus, this stuff is just as bad.
Interesting. That says a lot. And here we are. There's actually campaigns in some states to have radon-free schools.
Well, I declared this a radon-free area, and so I'm finding out now if my test's going to verify that.
Say again?
I declared our Buckingham Hill to be a radon-free area, and so we're running a test to see if that's going to hold up.
Okay. I mean, this would be a great campaign actually in our area to make sure that our community members are safe, is to have a radon-free qualified zone.
And it's private information, not the school, but I mean, individual homeowners, you know, until they have to disclose it for some reason.
Okay, so then we could only have a campaign for schools.
But if the idea is to pass this regulation that would have to be disclosed at closing, that seems to make sense.
Okay.
It's due diligence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but we couldn't obviously pinpoint individuals' homes. It would just have to be an overall, you know, declaration of a radon-free area.
Yeah.
That would take a while to compile that data for sure. Great. All right. I think that's the end of our slideshow.
I thank you for your assistance, and Jerry thanks you.
Jerry?
My wife. She asked me to do this, so a long time ago.
When she found out, or?
Yeah, she said, you know, we got to get this on people's radar screen. Yeah.
Happy to help.
Sorry, there's somebody vacuuming right outside my door. So it's a little fuzzy right now, but
I'm
yes.
just glad someone's vacuuming for you.
So we should all pitch in with Kira and get her elected so we can get this in the books.
I'm sorry, Charles, what?
We have to all pitch in to get you elected so we can get it on the books, because the existing representatives won't touch it.
They won't touch it because they have too many
people around here, they walk up, you know, I tell them about this and they say, well, if it's their own private property, it's none of your business.
It's a health hazard.
I know.
There's externalities, right?
Yeah.
Christina?
There's externalities to this. You know, yes, it's their private property. And when, you know, collectively speaking from some of these wells, especially when they're around the schools, that matters.
Of course it is.
That matters when other people could be affected by it. So, and if it doesn't need to get tested on their own, you know, if it only affects that one house, then fine. But the person moving in needs to know about it.
Yeah, nobody knows it. They've never had a well before, you know?
Yeah.
Nobody knows this stuff automatically.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and also if one person with a private well finds out they have high levels of radiation, what are the chances that their neighbor has it?
I'm thinking good, you know?
Yeah, we have data to show that.
What, Charles?
We have data to show that the neighbors have it.
Yeah, they're all linked. I mean, they can't be
different
separate
concentrations.
systems.
Yeah, I was looking at I made a map for this referral. I don't know if you can see that.
No, it's hard to see.
But basically, it's 1.5 miles from where the new wells are going to where we are. There's a zone here of about 500 feet that are contaminated. So.
Okay, contaminated means it's above the line of healthy, right?
Right. Over 300 picograms. And I'm thinking it comes down from Stonegate. There's an old quarry here, and it comes down that drainage. But it could come down this drainage. It goes this way, so who knows?
Okay.
Until you do the testing, you're never sure.
Okay, so we're going to be wrapping up here. Any conclusion thoughts here? How about you, Christina? Conclusion thoughts?
You know, for anybody listening or who will listen to the recording that is interested in testing their own home, do you have any recommendations that you want to make now for the most reputable companies, or will, if we're out of time, if you would just please email us.
Certified laboratories.
Yeah, I want to get that information out there to citizens so they can
That's great.
do their own testing to make sure their families are safe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Pace Laboratories did the testing for us.
Pace?
And, yeah, it was being operated by a chemist that's a friend of mine. I paid for my own analysis on my well, but he was very helpful in pointing out that radon is something we really have to look at. So this was Tom Patton. And he drove down from Wyoming. He did the sampling himself. And he took all the samples back to the lab and had them run for us.
Excellent.
This is in Sheridan, Wyoming. But the other labs like Hazen we've used, and SGS, there's several good labs here in town that we've used.
So they come to your home, or what do you do?
No, I delivered the samples to them. But
where do you get the test though for testing?
The guys, some of the people actually sampled themselves, but the last run we had the lab guy come because it's so tricky to get the zero headspace.
Okay, so I know of a company. It's called Reliant Radon Solutions. Mm-hmm. Terry is the owner. She's actually a big proponent of getting legislation enacted that it's a requirement to have radon testing upon new ownership of a home or a home inspection. So in fact, I invited her to be on the show and she was busy. So I think that we could, assume that that's a good company to work with. Reliant Radon Solutions.
Yeah, what we did is if we found radon, we would go back and sample and check it, make sure everything came back within reasonable limits.
Okay.
So we verified everything, double verified it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good idea to look online, obviously, and look at companies that provide it and see their ratings. Particularly just in the last year, because I did look up that and I noticed that some of them have great ratings 2 years ago, but for some reason the last year it's changed. So, and also work off of recommendations is great too, especially if you have like a neighbor who has their home mitigated. Ask them where they got it done, if they thought it was a good job. I think that's also a great way to go. Because that's actually how I found out about it when we moved here 6 years ago from Oregon, where we didn't talk about radon as an issue until I came here. I saw this strange looking white pipe coming out from my neighbor's house and asked him what it was about. And he worked at Lockheed, so I felt he's very techie, he's knowledgeable, and he told me all about the radon and the issues. And he was like, yeah, everybody needs to have this tested.
Right. Yeah, I can't use my consulting firm for this work because I'm a director of the water district and also director of the Rural Water Authority of Douglas County. So countywide, we have like 8,000 wells like this. That's huge.
8,000 what?
Wells that would need to be tested.
Okay. All right, we're onward ho. We're gonna need to close up here, and I want to thank you so much for being on, Charles and Christina, and for all the very important information and data that you provided, and all the watchdog work that you do, and leadership in this. And
Well, we'll get more results next year. We'll put it in the budget, another 5 samples.
okay,
We're
and
gonna
you're
try
gonna
to
work
hone
on
in
the meridian.
Try to hone in on it and find out where it's coming from.
Okay, and then you're gonna work on the Meridian community there across the street from where you live, right?
Yeah, that's in our precinct.
Yep.
So
All right. Well, we'll work together as a team. That's my plan.
that's good.
Yep. All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Enjoy the rest of your day. And I have an article on Radon on my website. Go check it out. KiraForColorado.com. Christina, you're on mute.
So if you're not signed up for Kira's newsletter, you can find that. You can sign up for that, and we will definitely be getting you links to all of this information with the names and contact information of these companies and how to advocate for your schools and your school boards to make sure that there's mediation, some means of mediation if one of these tests come back as having contaminated water or contaminated.
This is right across the street from Chaparral High School.
What is
That's important.
Chambers Reservoir?
Yeah.
Yep, it is. A lot of people live around there. Mm-hmm.
So there's uranium in that water, surface water.
Uranium.
Yeah.
That's radioactive, isn't it?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Like I say, it should be 0.03, not 0.3, as I had written there.
But it was still 0.16 and 0.18.
That was parts per million.
Yeah, it was still above, even if.
So the lining they're putting in the Chambers Reservoir is not going to rectify that?
Well, they didn't have a problem. We're going to have surface runoff. They're going to divert it around the reservoir, right?
Okay, so the uranium is an issue as well as the radon, it sounds like.
Absolutely.
Because I think radon comes out of uranium.
And radium also.
Yeah, okay.
These are not simple problems once you get into them.
No,
The more I dig, the more I find.
I don't know about I see red flags. Do you,
Yeah.
Christina?
Yep. I mean, I have friends who live in the neighborhood across the street there. And then I have friends who have taken classes at ACC. That's right there. That facility is busy day and night with students of all ages.
I'm seeing a article in the newspaper.
Mike was telling me he could hear water running in the
What?
basement. He doesn't know where it's coming from.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch it. What?
Ike McCorkle?
Yeah.
He lives on in that where the pit used to be for Stonegate. And he says he could hear water running in his basement.
Oh, wow.
Somewhere.
That's a concern.
You have a sump pump?
I don't know what's going on.
Well, that is a concern. I used to live a block away from them, and we would have water issues. We had a sump pump, and when it rained, wow, it was just flooded. It was just pouring out water, the sump pump from the. So it seemed like there was an underground stream or something as well.
That's what we used for our mitigation, was the sump pump that was already there. Just put a cap on it and pumped it outside.
Hmm.
So that only costs about $1,000, I think.
Yeah, to put it in. All right. There's more to come on this for sure, and more to be worked on.
That was a surprise to us. So I'm sure a lot of people are unaware.
Yeah. All right, Charles, it's such an honor to be talking to you and have you on this show, and all that you have contributed to your community is just wonderful, and I'm really appreciative.
Well, I want to really support your team, get you elected, because we need people that are smart and are willing to take some risk.
Yep, I'm all in it to help the greater good. Common sense for the common good.
Right.
And we work as a team to make it happen.
Absolutely.
All right. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye, everybody who's been watching.
Bye now.
Goodbye.